My name is Emily. I am 22 years old, and until last year, I lived under the oppressive financial control of my parents. It was supposed to be a day of joy, I remember thinking, but that birthday turned into the night I was kicked out with nothing but two suitcases. My father said, "You are nothing but a burden," as I stood there in shock, tears rolling down my cheeks. What they did not realize was that their perfect daughter had picked up some skills that would eventually freeze their credit cards indefinitely. Before I reveal how that birthday nightmare became the start of their financial collapse, tell me where you are watching from and hit subscribe to follow my path of vengeance and reclaiming my life. Raised in a vast suburban home, I had everything a child might desire in terms of material things. My mother, Susan, made sure we always presented an image of a flawless family through high-end clothes and flawless holiday cards. My father, Michael, a financial advisor with his own company, provided well but used money as an invisible set of shackles. Our house looked like something out of a glossy magazine, yet it felt as chilly as a safe in a bank. From as far back as I can remember, nothing I did ever met my mother's expectations. My grades were considered failures if they were not perfect, as she demanded. "Why can't you just put in more effort?" was her constant complaint, voiced with a disappointed sigh that I came to fear. My carefully made art projects were messy. My friends were seen as inappropriate, and my style was embarrassing according to Susan. Homecoming queen and valedictorian, Emily embodied perfection in ways that constantly reminded me of my own shortcomings against her unattainable standards. My father operated differently, though his methods were no less damaging. Michael seldom expressed criticism openly. Instead, he used money as his tool of control. "As long as I cover the bills, you will follow my rules," he declared whenever I challenged his choices. When I expressed interest in joining the school photography club, he pointed out that cameras were costly and implied my grades did not justify such luxuries. Every privilege came with hidden conditions. From the outside, their marriage seemed flawless, yet behind closed doors, I grew up listening to quiet arguments. Susan and Michael remained together for appearances and financial convenience, not for love. My mother directed the social calendar while my father governed the finances. Their quiet battle for power played out through me. My academic success became a possession of the family. When I earned a spot at the state university with a partial scholarship, my father wasted no time taking credit. "Your mother and I sacrificed to provide you with this opportunity," he asserted during the dinner where I had hoped to celebrate my achievement. The scholarship did not cover all tuition costs, which gave my parents the control they desired. They demanded joint bank accounts to manage expenses, but truly to oversee every transaction. True independence felt out of reach. Following my sophomore year, I tried to move into an apartment with friends, hoping for a sense of freedom, working additional shifts at a campus coffee shop to save money for the deposit. When Michael found out about my plans by checking my savings account, he contacted the landlord and canceled my application, calling me financially irresponsible. I was 20 years old. Their most painful form of control was how they dismissed my chosen field of study. Graphic design was not a legitimate career, Michael insisted. Artists always end up starving. He would remind me during our monthly budget meetings where he scrutinized my expenses on design software and art materials. Susan suggested that maybe I should think about accounting like my cousin Sarah, who already had a position secured at a well-known firm. I started keeping secrets because I had to. My coffee shop manager agreed to pay part of my salary in cash, which I kept in a locked box hidden in my dorm room. My closest friend, Lauren, became my trusted ally, the only person who knew how badly I wanted freedom. She noticed how I would tense up when my phone rang with my mother calling from Idaho. She saw how my voice turned fake and cheerful during those talks. The pressure heightened throughout my final year. 3 months before graduation, Michael gave me an ultimatum at Sunday dinner. Change your major to business or finance or lose all financial support. 4 years have been wasted on doodling, he said, cutting his steak with careful precision. It's time to mature. Susan agreed, adding, "Your father and I only desire what is best for you. This period of exploring graphic design has lasted sufficiently." I heard. Frozen in place, a fork paused midway to my mouth. I was halfway through completing my final portfolio project. Changing my major at this point was simply impossible. "Then I suppose you will need to find a way to cover your last semester on your own," Michael responded evenly, as if they were talking about the weather instead of shattering my future plans. The weeks that followed became increasingly intolerable. Susan's criticisms grew harsher, attacking everything from my messy hair unfit for job interviews to my circle of friends. Lauren was labeled as someone clearly lacking ambition. Michael started to scrutinize every expense I made. Even a coffee costing $5 became a reason for interrogation. Our apartment transformed into a hazardous zone where every discussion risked explosion. The constant stress severely affected my mental well-being. Lauren noticed the changes in me. I had lost weight, and I rarely smiled anymore. "You appear worn out all the time, Emily," she said during one of our study meetings at the library, one of the few places where I felt secure. "I am genuinely concerned about you." I began to act out in small ways. I stayed out beyond their acceptable curfew. I turned off my phone for several hours at a stretch. Quietly, I applied for graphic design internships. Each little act of rebellion was both frightening and thrilling. As my 22nd birthday drew near, an unusual tension overwhelmed our home. I had always minimized birthdays after years filled with letdowns, but reaching 22 carried a different weight. The moment was crucial, the age when I would finally graduate and hopefully gain my independence. I casually mentioned at breakfast that Lauren wanted to take me out for dinner. My parents exchanged a look I could not interpret. "We should talk about your plans," Michael said, his tone triggering a sense of caution. But he left for work before explaining further, leaving me uneasy throughout the day. That evening, I got a message from Lauren saying, "Your mom called asking strange questions about your birthday plans. Something feels wrong. Call me." I treated myself to a small chocolate cupcake and one candle from the campus bakery, a private celebration just in case. When I got home, I overheard my parents arguing about the situation and final decisions. Their voices stopped abruptly when they heard my keys jingle in the door. Despite all the warning signs, I clung to a tiny hope. Perhaps they had changed their minds about the ultimatum. Maybe my upcoming birthday offered a chance to make things right. I spent the evening before my birthday at the library, finishing assignments and avoiding the tense mood at home. When I got back, my parents were quietly watching television, barely noticing I was there. I went to bed feeling a strange mix of fear and hope, not knowing my life was about to be drastically altered within the next 24 hours. On my birthday morning, sunlight poured through the curtains, and for a fleeting moment, I forgot about the tension that had filled recent weeks. For a brief instant, I allowed myself to believe that today could be different. Maybe my birthday would soften my parents' rigid attitude, reminding them that behind their demands and my defiance was their daughter, someone worthy of love no matter her major or future plans. Downstairs, my parents went about their usual morning rituals. My mother sipped her black coffee while scrolling through emails on her tablet. My father spread butter on his toast with precise movements. Neither glanced up when I entered the room. "Good morning," I said tentatively, my voice quieter than I intended. My mother briefly looked up before returning to her screen. My father continued reading the financial pages of his newspaper. It was clear to them that this day was no different from any other Tuesday. I poured myself a cup of coffee, feeling the heavy silence squeeze around me. After several minutes, I could not bear it any longer. "So, it is my birthday today," I said, attempting to sound casual. "We know the date, Emily," my mother answered without raising her eyes. I quickly finished my breakfast and left for campus, holding back tears. During the day, messages from friends brightened my phone screen. Lauren sent a gif of cupcakes dancing. My classmate Tyler wrote, "Happy birthday, design genius." Even my former roommate from sophomore year, though we were no longer close, remembered my special day. Yet no word came from my parents. In the afternoon design class, Professor Willis noticed I was distracted. "Is everything okay, Emily?" she asked after dismissing the other students. "Just a lot on my mind," I responded, gathering my things. She rested against her desk. "Your portfolio project is looking outstanding. You truly have talent. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." Her words awakened something delicate inside me. "Thank you," I said, hurrying out before she could notice my tears. Lauren took me to lunch at our favorite sandwich place, giving me a handmade bracelet made of braided threads in my favorite colors. "For my best friend," she said, fastening it around my wrist. "May this year bring you all the freedom you deserve." By late afternoon, a heavy feeling of unease settled in my stomach as I drove home. Part of me wanted to avoid what awaited me, imagining driving past our house and continuing on to somewhere unfamiliar where no one had expectations of me. But I turned into the driveway and saw both my parents' cars already parked there, which was unusual for a weekday. The moment I walked inside, I sensed something was wrong. My parents sat in the living room, sitting rigidly as if preparing for a business meeting instead of welcoming their daughter on her birthday. My mother wore a stern expression, lips pressed tightly, while my father had his financial discussion folder laid out on the coffee table. "Sit down, Emily," Michael said, motioning to the chair across from them and positioning me like an employee being reviewed. I sat at the edge of the chair, my handbag still resting on my shoulder. "Your mother and I have been going over the household budget." Michael started without any introduction, opening his folder to display printouts that looked like my bank statements. "Your spending has become unsustainable." "My spending," I repeated, momentarily puzzled as anxiety crept in. I had been careful to stick to the tight budget they set, often skipping meals to make the figures add up. Susan interrupted. "It is not only about the money, although that certainly matters. It is about your constant disappointing choices in life." "Like what exactly?" I asked, genuine confusion in my voice. "This graphic design nonsense, for one," Michael said in a dismissive tone. "We have been far too patient letting you run this artistic phase, but patience has its limits." "It is not a phase," I said, feeling familiar anger rising within me. "It is my profession. I am good at it. Professor Willis says I have real talent." "Professor Willis is not the one paying your tuition," my father snapped. "Nor putting food on your table," Susan added. The argument quickly heated up, covering the usual grounds. My lack of promising career opportunities, my supposed ungratefulness, my failure to meet their expectations. Yet this time, there was something different. Their voices carried a sense of finality I had never heard before. When I mentioned I would be financially independent just 3 months after graduation, Michael slammed his... My hand rested on the coffee table. "You are nothing but a burden," he yelled, his face turning bright red. "Always have been. Your mother and I have supported you for 22 years. And what do we have to show for it? A daughter who disregards our wishes and squanders our hard-earned money on a worthless degree." His words struck me like sharp blows. I had been called a disappointment before, but never a burden. Not with such open disdain. Susan then spoke, her tone icy cold. "We are done supporting you, Emily. Completely finished." "What does that mean?" I whispered, barely able to speak. "It means you need to move out," Michael declared evenly. "Tonight?" I looked at them, convinced I must have heard wrong. "Tonight? You mean now? On my birthday?" "The date is irrelevant," Susan said firmly. "We have made our decision." Michael pulled out a printed list. "We have paid your last month's tuition. Your car insurance expires today. Your phone will stay on our family plan only until the month's end. Your health insurance coverage ends immediately." Each item felt like another door slamming shut. My mind raced, calculating what this really meant. No home, no health insurance, no way to cover my remaining costs. "You cannot just kick me out without warning," I cried, panic swelling in my chest. "We can, and we are," Susan replied. "You are an adult now, Emily. It is time to act like one." "You will never manage on your own," Michael added with a dismissive gesture. "Not with your..." Poor financial management and a lack of practical skills left me vulnerable. I was sure I would return within 1 week, prepared to switch to a business course. They delivered their ultimatum: leave tonight with some dignity or comply with their conditions regarding my education and future. The decision was undeniable. Despite my fear, I refused to abandon my dreams, even if it meant becoming homeless. I hurried upstairs to pack, my hands trembling so much I struggled to close my suitcase. Tears blurred my eyes as I gathered only the essentials, aware I could not take all my belongings. Many of the things I owned had been given to me by my parents under the guise of gifts. But now I understood those gifts carried unspoken obligations. Michael called out from below. "You have 30 minutes, Emily. Anything you leave behind will become ours." I phoned Lauren, my voice barely steady amid tears. They are throwing me out right now. Can I stay with you just for tonight? She replied instantly, Of course, I am on my way to get you. No time, I sobbed. They gave me 30 minutes. I will drive myself. I hurriedly stuffed clothes, toiletries, and my laptop into 2 suitcases. My portfolio and art materials went into my backpack. I left family photographs untouched. They no longer reflected my reality. A chocolate cupcake I had bought myself sat abandoned on the kitchen counter while I pulled my bags downstairs. My parents watched in silence like strangers witnessing an eviction. House key, Michael demanded, holding out his hand. With trembling hands, I unhooked it from my careworn grip. You will regret this stubbornness, Susan warned me as I wrestled with my bags. When you are ready to make wiser decisions, come talk about the terms for returning. I surprised myself with the firmness in my voice as I said, I will not come back. Despite my tears, standing on the porch with my scant belongings, I heard the deadbolt slide shut behind me, sealing the moment with harsh finality. Rain started falling as I loaded my car, soaking my hair and mixing with the tears streaming down my face. Happy birthday to me. Lauren's apartment was tiny, hardly enough space for her and her roommate Kimberly, yet they welcomed me immediately. I collapsed onto their threadbare sofa, suitcases still packed beside me, overwhelmed by the massive shift in my world. They really gave you no warning? Kimberly asked, handing me a cup of tea I could not drink because of the lump in my throat. None, I whispered. One moment I had a home, the next I was homeless. Lauren sat close, her arm around my shoulders. You are not homeless. You can stay here as long as you need. Still, we all knew their small one-bedroom apartment could not shelter a third person for long. Lauren and Kimberly already shared the bedroom, with Lauren sleeping on a twin mattress pushed between the wall and Kimberly's bed. That first night, I lay awake on their lumpy couch, staring at the ceiling as worries circled my mind like scavengers. How would I afford food? Where would I live after this temporary setup? Could I manage to complete my degree? What would happen to my health if I fell ill without any insurance? At 3 o'clock in the morning, I opened my banking app and realized that my parents had already revoked their access to my account. The balance shown was heartbreaking. $23,748. All my other funds were in the shared account they controlled, which was now out of my reach. When the sun finally rose, I still had not slept. My eyes stung, my throat was sore, and every breath made my chest hurt. Lauren found me awake as she prepared to leave for her early class. Did you get any sleep at all? She asked, worry clear in her voice. I shook my head. Call the financial aid office first thing, she urged, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. They must have emergency resources for situations like this. The university's financial aid office opened at 9 o'clock. I stood outside at 8:30, gripping my student ID as if it could save me. Mrs. Sullivan, a counselor I had never met, listened patiently as I nervously explained my situation. Sadly, your FAFSA still includes your parents' income, she told me. To be considered an independent student, you have to prove that your parents have completely severed financial support. I insisted they had. They kicked me out last night. We need proper documentation, she said softly. Tax documents showing you are self-supporting or legal emancipation papers are required. Without those papers, you will still be regarded as financially dependent. I was left overwhelmed with a pile of emergency loan applications, scholarship options, and work-study details. Yet none of these offered a solution to my urgent housing problem or covered my tuition for the following month. My next destination was the coffee shop where I worked, and I pleaded with my manager for additional shifts. After hearing my story, he kindly said, I can give you 10 more hours. But that was the limit of the budget. 10 hours at minimum wage would not even cover half the cost of my textbooks, much less food or rent. At the same time, my phone constantly buzzed with messages from my father insisting I return the family belongings I kept, such as my laptop, a graduation gift from high school, and the suitcases themselves. Meanwhile, my mother sent messages to distant relatives, spinning a false tale about my rebellious behavior and ingratitude, casting themselves as the victims of a difficult daughter. By the third day of being homeless, I was surviving on just 3 hours of sleep. taking showers in the campus gym, storing my bags at Lauren's apartment, and struggling to keep up with classes while my life felt like it was falling apart. Professor Willis immediately noticed my decline. "Whatever is going on in your personal life is impacting your work," she said after class. "Your designs show distraction. Talk to me, Emily." I broke down in her office, sharing the entire humiliating story through tears. She listened without interruption and then offered concrete assistance, connecting me to the student emergency housing program and providing support. A possible job opportunity arose in the design department. "Your skills truly deserve encouragement," she stated with conviction. "Do not allow temporary setbacks to interrupt your path forward." 1 week after being expelled, I was still managing to get by, but only just. The university's emergency housing had a waiting list stretching for 2 weeks. My loan approvals were still uncertain. My work hours were insufficient, and a harsh truth was settling in. It seemed likely I might have to drop out of university with merely 3 months remaining until graduation. Then came the last straw. After an especially grueling double shift, I checked my modest personal bank account and discovered it was frozen with a notification that a dispute had been filed. Somehow, my parents convinced the bank that the account had been opened fraudulently, even though only my name appeared on it. I sat at a campus computer lab staring in disbelief at the screen when Tyler from my advanced design class noticed my agitation. "Bank troubles?" he asked as he placed his laptop beside me. I confessed, feeling too drained to mask my situation any longer. "My parents froze my only account. They forced me out last week, and now they are making sure I cannot access the little money I have left." Tyler let out a low whistle. "That is seriously wrong." After a moment, he added, "My dad did something similar when I came out. Tried to control my money after emotional control failed. How did you deal with it?" I inquired. "Not always legally," he admitted with a wry smile. "But it taught me a lot." Our discussion flowed toward the weak points in financial security during the process. The topic shifted to the unexpected lack of protective measures most banks and financial institutions applied. Michael described how numerous individuals used the same passwords for multiple accounts, seldom updated their security questions, and left open vulnerabilities in their digital setups. He emphasized that people usually do not grasp the risks to their accounts, particularly older individuals who set up online banking many years ago and never strengthened their defenses. A new idea started to form in my mind. Emily and Susan had asked me to help establish their online banking profiles long ago, and both always found technology challenging. Michael raised a curious eyebrow and asked, "Did those passwords ever get changed?" I admitted probably not. My father applies a consistent password style everywhere, combining his birth year with the company name followed by an exclamation mark. When questioned about recovery emails, I nodded thoughtfully, recalling I had connected both accounts to the main email my father uses. Michael cautiously remarked, "You might have more control than you think." Later that evening, my father sent me an email titled, "Your Belongings." The content was brief yet harsh. It stated they had started donating my forgotten possessions to Goodwill, including my childhood books and art supplies, meant to serve some needy recipients. The message concluded with a sharp lesson about responsibility. My books from years ago, my treasured art collections, and my professional portfolio materials were all being discarded. They discarded me with such ease that something inside me grew hard and unyielding. If they could shatter my life without any warning or remorse, then perhaps it was only fair that they faced some repercussions themselves. The following afternoon, Emily and I met at a coffee shop far from campus and out of sight of university networks. He came armed with his laptop while I carried my swelling frustration and hopelessness. Before we began, he warned me, "Let me be clear. I am not helping you steal money or engage in fraud. That crosses into criminal territory, and I want no part of it." I reassured him that I only wished for them to feel a hint of the chaos they had unleashed upon me. He nodded, seemingly content with my explanation. There is a difference between illegal hacking and using legitimate access already available to you. We should focus on the latter. For the next hour, he detailed how credit freezes operated, outlined the distinctions between fraud alerts and security freezes, and described how to request verifications that, while technically lawful, caused maximum inconvenience. The genius of a credit freeze, according to him, is that it serves as a security measure rather than an act of sabotage. You are safeguarding their accounts against fraud, just with extreme thoroughness. Through careful inquiry, I learned that my parents primarily relied on credit despite projecting an image of prosperity. My father leased his expensive car instead of buying it outright, and my mother's spending was supported by numerous credit cards. Their lifestyle was a mere illusion of wealth. While uncovering significant debt concealed from view, financial managers frequently struggle with their own monetary problems, Tyler noted. They are simply more skilled at concealing these troubles. The more I delved into my parents' fiscal condition, the more apparent their fragility became. Their whole social reputation relied on uninterrupted credit availability and upholding appearances regardless of the cost. Following our planning meeting, I turned to legal resources at the university library to understand the boundaries. What actions counted as unauthorized access compared to legitimately using credentials I had? Where did inconvenience end and harassment begin? I needed my scheme to disrupt as much as possible without crossing legal limits. That evening, when I shared my findings with Lauren, she voiced her worry. "Emily," she said, "I get why you want them to feel the impact after everything they did, but seeking revenge keeps you tied to them. Do you truly wish for that?" Her words made me stop and think. I want them to face the consequences. I finally explained. They behave as if they can simply throw me away without facing any results. "Just be cautious," she advised. "Do not turn into the person they accused you of becoming." The following day, I rehearsed my plan carefully, using university computers instead of my own device. I created a secure email with a privacy-centered provider. I recorded the original account configuration I had aided my parents with years prior to prove my rightful access. I collected proof of their financial abuse, preparing thoroughly for what was ahead. I received threatening text messages warning they would cut me off, along with emails concerning family property. A meeting with Mr. Martinez at Student Legal Services confirmed my suspicions. "Your parents' eviction tactics seem legally questionable. Tenant rights protect even family members," he explained. "They were required to provide you with proper written notice, usually 30 days. While this knowledge would not allow me to return to their home, it validated my feeling of unfairness and strengthened my determination. Through discreet talks with mutual acquaintances, I discovered my parents had been telling family friends I suffered a mental breakdown and left willingly after making unreasonable demands. This effort to safeguard their reputation by damaging mine only intensified my resolve. With my plan carefully crafted, I waited for the right time. Credit card payments were generally due between the 1st and 5th of each month. My father's car payment was automatically processed on the 3rd, and the country club fees charged on the 4th. The timing had to cause maximum trouble without lasting harm. On the evening of the 30th, I accessed my parents' primary credit card account using a password I knew remained unchanged. It was Michael's birth year combined with the name of his company plus an exclamation mark, exactly as he had used for years. The account opened immediately, confirming my access was still valid. Instead of directly altering their accounts, I chose to. Authentic security measures provided by the credit card companies themselves were in place. I reported cards as potentially compromised instead of canceling them. Security phrases on their credit reports were requested using their own personal details. I altered the answers to security questions by a single character. This was just enough to create problems during verification attempts when they tried to reset information, but subtle enough not to seem suspicious. Every move was intended to generate a chain of minor troubles rather than cause lasting harm. Cards would be temporarily blocked while new ones were issued. Credit checks required extra identity confirmation. Automatic payments would fail because of card updates. I arranged notifications through my anonymous email to track the impact of my efforts, then waited, feeling a curious blend of satisfaction and remorse. Was I becoming as cunning as they had been? I pushed the thought away, recalling my birthday spent packing suitcases under pouring rain. The consequences of what I had done appeared sooner than I expected. The very next morning, a forwarded group message from my cousin Sarah arrived. My mother had contacted several relatives experiencing odd problems with our cards. Michael believes it could be identity theft. If anyone needs to get in touch, please call instead of texting since we are handling bank matters all day. By that afternoon, updates from shared acquaintances began arriving slowly. My mother had been. Emily was entertaining her garden club friends at a high-end restaurant when her card was declined. The backup card failed too, forcing her to call another member to settle the bill, a social embarrassment she felt deeply. Michael faced his own awkward moment when his corporate card was rejected during lunch with potential clients. According to gossip from his assistant shared with Lauren's mother, he had to ask a junior team member to cover the expenses with a promise to reimburse later. Their confusion soon turned into anxiety over the following days. Through my email monitoring, I received automated alerts about their increasingly frantic efforts to reset passwords and security questions. Each try triggered extra verification steps requiring phone confirmations they could not complete because their contact details had been slightly changed. Michael reported suspected identity theft to the police, but the investigation stalled since there was no actual fraudulent activity. Instead, the cards were simply frozen pending security checks, which were standard protective actions. The credit bureau demanded further paperwork to unfreeze their accounts, stating, "Please allow 3 to 5 business days for processing after all documents are submitted." The timing could not have been worse. When the third day of the month arrived, Michael's luxury car payment failed to go through due to the card suspension. This situation only added to their stress. A late fee was triggered along with an automatic notification from the leasing office. The country club payment also missed on the 4th, causing a warning that membership benefits would be suspended temporarily until the payment issue was cleared. By monitoring social media and receiving news from mutual acquaintances, I observed their flawless image begin to crumble. My mother canceled her usual salon visit, explaining it away as a scheduling conflict instead of admitting financial strain. My father rearranged client meetings, claiming administrative complications at his firm. Their monetary troubles started to impact their social status, which was their highest priority. Susan's friends began quietly discussing financial concerns. Michael's business associates questioned his financial reliability, doubting if his advisory company was experiencing difficulties. Neighbors overheard escalating arguments through open windows as they blamed one another for neglecting security. Throughout this turmoil, they remained completely oblivious to my role, convinced they were victims of random financial errors or system faults. While part of me took satisfaction in witnessing their once impeccable world collapse, another part felt a growing emptiness inside. Lauren noticed my constant obsession with updates about my parents' issues. "You are spending more time tracking their troubles than addressing your own," she said one evening as I refreshed my inbox for the 10th time. She was right. My academic performance was declining because I could not focus properly. My work quality slipped as I grew more exhausted and distracted. The revenge that once empowered me was now overwhelming, emotionally binding me to those who had rejected me. The pleasure I felt from seeing them face difficulties was mixed unexpectedly with guilt. Despite everything, they remained my parents. When I heard that their marriage was struggling due to financial pressure, with Susan contemplating staying at her sister's until Michael resolved the problem, a sharp sense of remorse pierced me. What concerned me most was realizing I recognized my own actions. The careful plotting, the precise timing for greatest effect, the emotional manipulation. I was using the same methods my father had applied throughout my childhood, only with a different target. "You look at that phone like your dad used to look at his financial statements," Lauren said softly, all planned and unemotional. Her words hit me like a sudden chill. Had my justified fury turned me into someone I loathed? 2 weeks into my revenge scheme, news came that ought to have thrilled me. I had been accepted for emergency student housing and a campus position that would cover basic costs. Professor Willis had recommended me for a prestigious summer internship that might kickstart my career. These opportunities presented a way forward, a means to endure and ultimately flourish despite my parents' abandonment. Despite everything, I found myself more absorbed in the latest news about my father's business difficulties than in the positive changes happening in my own life. The truth hit me hard. My desire for revenge was not mending my emotional wounds. It was prolonging them, keeping the pain fresh and raw. The university's housing program assigned me a small studio apartment within graduate housing, made available due to a mid-semester dropout. Although it was scarcely larger than a dorm room, it provided something priceless: stability. For the first time in weeks, I fully unpacked my suitcases, no longer moving from one temporary place to another. My job on campus in the design department gave me enough hours to cover my basic needs. I created promotional designs for university events, which helped build my portfolio, while earning enough money for food and other necessities. Professor Willis had arranged this position especially for me, a generous gesture that sharply contrasted with the cruelty I had experienced from my parents. In the emergency housing program, I met other students with similarly difficult backgrounds, some rejected by their families or facing financial hardship. Liam had suffered after converting to a different religion, and Kendra supported herself after fleeing an abusive household. Their strength inspired me, especially because they concentrated on shaping their futures instead of seeking revenge against those who had hurt them. The University Counseling Center also offered free therapy sessions for students facing tough times. At first hesitant, I eventually scheduled a meeting after Lauren's persistent and gentle urging. Dr. Nelson, a composed woman with warm eyes, listened to my account without any judgment. "What you went through was a deep betrayal," she admitted. "Your feelings of anger are entirely justified." I then asked, "Why do I feel worse the more I retaliate against them?" She responded, "Because revenge keeps the connection alive, just in a different way. You are still letting them drain your emotional energy, occupy your time, and fill your thoughts. True liberation comes from severing that bond altogether, not merely reversing roles." Her message struck a chord with me, yet I was not prepared to let go entirely. Not at that moment. I kept an eye on my parents' situation while striving to rebuild my own existence, balancing between two worlds. During a portfolio critique, my art instructor, Dr. Carter, offered a fresh viewpoint. After reviewing my latest creations, he leaned back with a worried look. "Your technical ability is still impressive, Emily, but these recent works lack the emotional intensity you usually bring. They seem lifeless." I hadn't noticed how much my inner struggles were seeping into my art. I explained vaguely, "I've been dealing with a lot lately." He replied kindly, "Art requires being present. When we are overwhelmed by past pain or future fears, our creative voice becomes muted. The things holding you back need to be released before you can genuinely progress." That night, as I obsessively checked my surveillance, I received an email updating me about my parents' ongoing financial turmoil. During a group project, a classmate's casual remark hit me unexpectedly. Rachel said, "You check that email more often than your social media." She guessed it must be something quite significant. Suddenly, I saw with uncomfortable clarity how much mental space my plan for revenge still occupied. Although my parents' lives faced a temporary upheaval, mine had been permanently transformed by their rejection and my reaction. They would eventually resolve their money problems, but I risked defining my new independence entirely through my connection to them, even if that tie was now rooted in retaliation. That night, alone in my small studio apartment, I carefully weighed my options. I could keep overseeing and sustaining the financial roadblocks I had created, prolonging their hardship and my emotional involvement, or I could decide to devote all my energy to rebuilding my own future, rather than focusing on their punishment. The choice became clear when an email arrived from the well-known design firm where Professor Willis had recommended me for a summer internship. They invited me for an interview and a portfolio review the following week. This chance could jumpstart my career, but only if I showed up concentrated and ready, free from distractions caused by my vendetta. I knew what I had to do. Using the anonymous email account, I began drafting detailed instructions to lift the financial freeze. Managing accounts and resetting security settings involved details that enabled my parents to regain financial access without exposing my role. I arranged for the email to be sent automatically in 2 days, offering a solution that would seem to originate from the financial institutions themselves. When I shared my choice with Lauren, she embraced me warmly and said, "I am so proud of you. This requires more courage than any act of revenge ever would." Releasing the past was far from simple. A part of me still desired for them to endure longer pain to fully grasp the destruction they had caused. Yet, I realized that no financial hardship could ever truly make them understand the emotional wounds of their rejection. Some lessons would remain unlearned by them, and accepting this truth became essential for my own recovery. With my resolution set, I focused entirely on creating my new life. I applied for extra scholarships aimed at independent students, securing enough support to cover tuition for my final semester. Devoting myself fully to preparing my portfolio for the internship interview, I produced designs that Dr. Carter praised as my most genuine yet. The summer internship offer arrived, bringing valuable professional experience and a modest stipend that let me sustain my independence throughout the summer months. I also found reasonably priced off-campus accommodation with 2 other design students for the upcoming semester, ensuring Stability extended far beyond my temporary emergency housing, without question. My first genuinely calm birthday celebration happened 3 weeks later when Lauren arranged a surprise gathering with my new friends from the shelter and workplace. There were no extravagant presents or upscale restaurants, just authentic connections and chocolate cake shared in our modest common space. For the very first time in many years, I blew out the candles surrounded by people who appreciated me exactly as I was. That night, I received an unexpected message from a gallery owner who had visited our department's student exhibition. They showed interest in featuring two of my artworks in an upcoming show, highlighting emerging talents. This chance did not come from family ties or financial advantage, but purely from acknowledgement of my skill. As spring gave way to summer, I found myself increasingly free from the anger that once drove me. Although some days remained tough and I mourned the relationship I had lost with my family, I no longer saw myself mainly as their rejected daughter or a clever avenger. I was evolving into Emily the designer, Emily the friend, Emily the survivor. These were identities founded on my own strengths rather than reactions to their behavior. 1 year after being forced out on my birthday, my life had changed in ways I never expected. I graduated with honors despite financial difficulties, walking across the stage while Lauren and my new friends cheered loudly from the crowd. No family members were present in the audience, but their absence did not define the experience anymore. My summer internship had transformed into a junior designer role at a small yet well-regarded company, providing enough income for a modest but stable lifestyle. I shared an apartment with Lauren and Rachel, pooling our resources to create a cozy home full of creativity and mutual encouragement. Financial knowledge had become a major focus, almost an obsession. I kept track of every dollar spent, built an emergency savings fund, and established credit under my own name, determined never to be vulnerable financially again. My relationship with money turned deliberate rather than reactive, emphasizing security over prestige. Occasionally, I still received updates about my parents through mutual acquaintances, though I no longer sought this information. They eventually recovered from their financial troubles, blaming system errors and identity theft protection services without ever suspecting my involvement. Their attempts to reach out increased after their finances improved, their messages shifting between demands for reconciliation on their terms and guilt-tripping reminders about family duties. I kept contact to a minimum, answering only direct communications with brief, neutral replies that set clear boundaries. When Michael insisted on the return of family heirlooms he claimed I had, I answered plainly. I made sure to take only my personal belongings when I left. When Susan suggested starting anew without admitting any faults, I declined politely but with conviction. My therapy sessions went on, shifting focus away from handling immediate crises toward fostering long-term recovery. Dr. Nelson guided me to identify unhealthy family cycles to prevent repetition, especially those involving financial matters and control. Overcoming these inherited patterns demands deliberate action. She once explained during a session, understanding is the initial step, but adopting new habits solidifies the transformation. This insight affected all my connections. I became aware of power struggles, ensuring I did not imitate my father's domineering ways or my mother's emotional manipulation. I worked on open communication, setting fair boundaries, and genuinely expressing my needs, abilities that had been discouraged in my original family. My circle of friends grew beyond Lauren to include individuals who encouraged my development rather than holding me back. Kimberly from emergency housing became a close companion after we found we both loved photography and hiking. Tyler, whose tech expertise had helped with my plan for revenge, became a trusted friend who truly understood what family rejection feels like. The most unexpected experience was stepping into a mentoring role for fellow students dealing with family estrangement. When the housing program director asked me to talk to a newly arrived student whose parents, when my financial support was cut off, I did not hesitate to accept it. Sharing my personal experiences and practical methods for survival gave meaning to my difficult journey. Navigating extended family ties required careful adjustments. My cousin Sarah contacted me privately after hearing different accounts of my departure. She confessed that Aunt Susan's version did not sound quite right and said, "I want to hear your side." This conversation sparked a cautious reconnection and similar messages from other relatives who questioned the official story. These relationships were built according to my terms, with clear limits and mutual respect, unlike the demands and expectations my parents had imposed. As the anniversary of being forced out approached, Lauren proposed a celebration to reclaim the significance of the day. Not a pity party, she emphasized, but a freedom party to mark 1 year of independence. This event turned into a milestone, offering a moment to appreciate the progress I had made. Surrounded by friends who had become my chosen family, I understood that the painful birthday, which once felt like an end, was actually a new beginning. I shared with the small gathering in our apartment that I had once believed losing my parents' support would shatter me. Instead, it compelled me to uncover strengths I never imagined I possessed. The most important lesson from that very challenging year was realizing that my parents' rejection reflected their own limitations, not my value. Their failure to love unconditionally and support my ambitions was about them, not me. To be seen as an individual rather than merely an extension of others was their shortcoming, not mine. The vengeance that once felt so gratifying only offered fleeting comfort. True healing did not come from causing them pain, but from creating a life beyond their influence. Every success achieved through my own determination, every sincere relationship built without deceit, and every moment of happiness lived on my own terms became a solid part of the foundation for my renewed existence. I also came to understand the complex nature of anger, which could serve as both a driving force and a destructive toxin. At first, it pushed me forward when despair threatened to consume me, yet clinging to it would have eventually tainted my soul, turning me into a reflection of everything I loathed. On my 23rd birthday, celebrated with close friends in our warm apartment, I made a wish as I extinguished my candles. Not for my parents to face hardship, but for my heart to continue healing and to stay open to happiness despite past pain. That night, I penned in my journal. 1 year ago, I believed my life was ending. Today, I recognize it was merely starting anew on my own terms. The people who were meant to love me deeply could not or chose not to, but that never stopped me from discovering love, building a community, and crafting a life true to my values instead of their demands. The most powerful revenge is not making others suffer, but refusing to let their cruelty shape who you become. Have you ever faced rejection from your own family, or have you ever taken charge of financial matters the way Emily did? How did you manage it? I would really enjoy reading your experiences in the comment section beneath. If this tale touched your heart, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about triumphing over family difficulties and gaining independence. Keep in mind that occasionally the family we create holds greater significance than the one we are born into. Thank you for joining me on this path, and I send you courage to face whatever obstacles come your way today.